Welcome to the Young Creatives podcast, brought to you by Revision Marketing Group. Young Creatives podcast will serve as a platform to promote, discuss, and give advice on millennial creatives coexisting in the traditional job market. Okay, hi everyone, and thank you for joining us on the Young Creatives podcast. We are obviously kind of new to this. This is our first episode, and we just kind of want to introduce ourselves. So I am Marley, and I am joined with two of my friends and coworkers that I'm so blessed to call them that. Michaela. Michaela, you want to give yourself a little tidbit?
So my name's Michaela. I'm the website and graphic designer. So this is Young Creatives. That's about all I got. Michael?
I'm Michael. I am the IT guy. I usually run the sound, but I'm also on the show sometimes, and today is one of those times.
Yeah.
So
we pulled Michael out of his IT hole to get on the podcast. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I just have a question for you guys.
Yeah.
So what was the biggest thing that kind of made Young Creatives? Like, what is it? Why are we doing it? Like, anything.
I feel like we kind of all, so I think something I would like to talk about with each of us is like, what's our like area of creativity? Because obviously we're all young. I am 23. And my area of creativity is definitely going to be graphic design, that freedom of text content and writing with social media marketing. And then on my spare time, I do like photography and like collage art. So that's where my creativity lies in Young Creatives. Michaela?
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it on the head. I think the biggest thing is not only working at a marketing company, but also trying to channel your creativity within your certain role at Revision. So with website design, a lot of people think that it's just point blank and that it's just a website. But I think there's a lot that can go into it that can correlate like who you are as a brand and really focuses on you with your personal brand rather than just, okay, here's your basic website, good luck kind of thing.
Your websites are fantastic though, visually. I didn't know that many elements went into having a website, but as I have worked here and gotten to work beside Michaela, I have realized that there's a lot of thought that goes into a website and the design of it. And it's like you're a wizard at it. It's insane.
Thank you.
And then Michael, the same in that sense with IT. I don't know how he does half of the things that he does and makes possible on the back end of our websites, but you do. So, little IT wizard back there too. We're just a whole team of wizards.
I would be a wizard if I could.
Yeah.
I think it'd be a good time.
Same.
So I guess, Michael, the biggest thing is people see something like IT just very point blank. So where do you find like creative ways to like get solutions, like automations, like where does that kind of?
Well, in terms of, creative digital solutions like that, I think it really is just about applying practicality and efficiency. That's what I try and do. I like to structure things in a way where it rides that line of, being just as much as it needs to be, but also being thorough, and then it's a very hard thing to find balance in, I think for anybody, but I think with the way that the world is going in terms of how, it's not even just every year, it's every week, every month, there's new technology, new things coming out, new stuff being automated, with the wealth of knowledge that we have at this point, because, we've been kind of going on this digital curve for, at least half a decade now, late 60s, 70s, around there. So it's just, like I said, just kind of getting what you got and making the best of it, I think, I don't know. It's kind of a big question, so I'm almost struggling to think of a lot of stuff. But, yeah, I just think computers are important. I mean, they're kind of in everything we do now, and, you know, trying to get them to perform, you know, in the best way possible, as quickly as possible, as thoroughly as possible, is, you know, kind of, you know, why they're there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's how I feel.
Absolutely. Okay. So, yeah, go ahead.
So I think, and we can kind of like all kind of bounce off each other on this, but I feel like the podcast, we started it because here we are, we're all in our 20s. We are all have some sort of creativity in some form, which I believe that everybody does kind of have their own sense of creativity in some form. And so, like, I feel like this podcast can appeal to everyone because I know I'm a huge podcast listener until I listen to too many murder podcasts and I get paranoid and I have to stop for a little bit. But I've always wanted to listen to a podcast that I could just really relate with these people with and even kind of, in a sense, get inspiration for my current job. So I feel like whether you're in marketing or you're just a young person who is out here, you know, trying to make way for yourself and your future self and build this sense of life, which is like building your career and, you know, not necessarily building a family, but if that's what you're going to do, it's what you're going to do. But just kind of like, in a way, being an adult. I know that sounds crazy. It's like we're birthing into adults. And like, if I had I would want to listen to people who had a similar situation and similar idea. So I guess what I'm hoping for with this podcast is that our listeners find some sort of comfort and feel good that, hey, I'm in my 20s too, and like really trying to figure out exactly what I am doing with my job and how I can excel in that, you know?
Right. And I think with that, like the more you can think about with young creatives, the biggest thing that I want to touch on, so I did half of my bachelor's online.
Wow.
And so, like, with that, I think there's, like, this stigma after you get out of college, like, you have everything set, I think.
It's just, like, you feel like when you graduate college, it's like, okay, there's definitely going to be, like, 4 people knocking on my door for a job.
Absolutely. And I think that's definitely not the case. And so even like graduating in a pandemic, you have to get creative with separating yourself outside of the recent college grad crowd, especially because there was just so many of us that were just like, okay, now what? So like, I think that's the biggest thing for myself. It was just trying to figure out a creative space that I can actually love what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And not go to work every day and hate my life. And I think the biggest part of it is just finding something you're super passionate about and making things happen because you're passionate about it.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't want to bash, like, anybody in my family, but most of them are in healthcare.
Yeah.
And right now is not an amazing time to go into healthcare or to be in healthcare.
No.
Like, kudos to all of you guys who are in healthcare.
Yeah, anyone who's a listener and had to be in healthcare or start out any sort of healthcare job in the middle of 2020, or even people who were established and had to work through 2020, you guys, yeah, I mean, a huge pat on the back, hugs, I will kiss your feet. Like, this is...
Well, I mean, don't do that. It is a pandemic.
Oh, this is true.
So
there goes Michael, always thinking ahead.
Right. And I think the biggest thing is just trying to find fulfillment in something that you feel like you're really feeling like you're doing something. And I think you can find that in a lot of things, even if it isn't your job.
Yeah.
So whether it be like with an Etsy shop or like being a local artist, like your boyfriend's in a band, he's a band manager.
Yeah.
Like your wife makes
Glasses chains.
Yes. So there's like a lot of different things that you can channel that into.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing is like, I want to touch on it with you, Marley, is that you did say that, like, I feel like everybody has some form of creativity.
Yeah.
And I think that's like 110% right, because even if my creative flow isn't the same as yours, I might not recognize it as creative.
Yeah.
So, like, right off the bat, when I started working at Revision Marketing, Cindy was talking to me about all of these, automations, like, all of this CRM stuff. Right. And I had no idea what he was saying.
Yes.
And so, just figuring out how he can really focus on, okay, this makes sense to do this because, and I never would have thought about that because that's just not my thing.
I can very much relate with that. Sydney is our boss and also our pleasure to be our coworker too. And he is really, really good at marketing. And so when I came in, which at this point was like almost 3 months ago, which is crazy to think. When I came in, I was coming out of real estate marketing, and that's all I knew was how to market houses. And so I came in, and still sometimes he'll be like, so these are the creative, this is like the kind of basis that I want in the flow of design. And sometimes I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like yesterday, he was like, we need to have a section of downloadables. And so like the whole time, I'm telling myself right now, but the whole time I was thinking all of these graphics are downloadable. But then I understood he meant banners for websites. So it's just like we're all getting some sort of like learning curve, you know?
Absolutely.
And like we're still on the come up, even though we are blessed enough to be working at a marketing firm in our 20s.
Yes.
But like it's crazy.
Yes. So
in case anyone else is out there and they too had a problem with downloadables, you're not alone.
Wow. Okay, so as far as I guess I just want to start with Michael.
Yeah.
So with you being in IT, how did you or why were you drawn to like the marketing side of the realm?
Well, that's actually an interesting question. So, so I knew I wanted to do something with computers. I just didn't really know what. I'd been going on computers, and like my dad, when I was young, was really into computer games and really into Linux, like as it was kind of becoming a new thing. And I was just around that a lot, you know, like we didn't have a whole lot growing up, but we did always manage to have internet. Like that was one thing that we kind of had in it. So I got a lot of exposure to that very early on. And as the years went on, I just found myself at some point or another being interested in like the idea of marketing, like learning like what goes behind these advertisements, what's the motivation, how, you know, how does it work, right? And when I was in college, I had gone to get my degree for computer science, and I ended up getting an internship at a digital marketing company. And when I got in there and was able to see a lot of what goes into that, you know, the website design, the data manipulation, the automation, the customer side of it, how to tailor things, you know, just a real transformative digital space for that kind of stuff. It really, really interested me. And then I graduated in May of 2020. And I kind of just absolutely, especially with computer science, because a lot of people are going into it now, and, you know, being a fresh graduate, it is kind of an oversaturated situation where you really have to stick out from the crowd because, you know, there's so many different jobs and different companies, and all the big ones, they want you to stick out. They want you to already have, you know, a few years experience for an entry-level position. So, you know, I got out of college, and I definitely struggled with that. You know, I worked some in-between jobs, and I didn't think it was going to be easy, but it was definitely harder than I thought it was going to be. And I moved out of state to New Mexico for a while with my wife, and things just really weren't working out there anyways. So one day we decided to move back, and at that point I had been online looking for jobs for months. You know, I had applied for at least 100 jobs just on the internet. But you know, like I had been looking for a job in Shreveport for about a week and saw a posting for this job, and it said marketing, and I was like, oh, I could do that. So, yeah, I think it's just kind of something that I've always been drawn to, both of them separately. And then when I mushed them together, I was like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. And, yeah, it's very fulfilling, I think. I think technology has a big part to play in marketing and how we, as consumers exist. You know, everybody buys everything online now. Everything is online. So
and the pandemic really pushed that too.
Yeah,
I mean,
no,
we really
absolutely.
learned what the power of marketing and the power of the internet can do. Like,
I was saying it, and it's actually funny. So one of my creative outlets is I write.
yeah,
And I went back recently and found something that I had written like a year, like in April or May of last year, like about what I was feeling in the moment,
yeah,
like about the world. And it was really interesting to go back and read that. And, you know, to see back then and even now, it's like, you know, without the internet, if, you know, there's some alternate timeline where we're still right here, but the internet just doesn't happen to exist. You know,
there would be
we'd be crumbling right now.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Like things would just, like, people wouldn't be able to communicate.
Yeah.
People would be.
So many failed businesses.
Yeah. Not
time.
even that. It would just be like people, you know, without the ability to communicate or, you know, just being stuck inside, people would just, you know, they'd lose it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's just really, I think it's humbling more than anything else. Or at least it was for me, to be able to step back and be like, this one thing that had to have so many other things happen before for us to have it in the way that we have it now, is like the hair that is holding everything together right now. And if, you know, somehow we woke up tomorrow and the internet just died, the internet wasn't around anymore, like what would we do?
Could not compute.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, in terms of that, I just think, you know, it's important at this point, and it's just kind of necessary to really at least have some toe in the technological field, just because, you know, that's the best way to do it. You know, half of IT is information, and, you know, I find, at least in my experiences, just, again, in between college, I did a little bit of freelance work out in New Mexico, and something that I noticed really, really heavily was just how many people had, like, no knowledge of technology. You know, they didn't know how to set up a router for Wi-Fi. They didn't know how to, you know, run antivirus software.
Right.
And, you know, one could sit there and be like, oh, you know, like, oh, they just don't know anything. But, you know, when you look at the circumstances behind that and think, you know, like they've never had to, they've never learned, you know, these are people who are older than us, you know, people who are like, they have had full established lives. And now you're throwing technology into the thing and being like, hey, learn how to do this stuff to get in there. So it's just like sometimes can be such a big separation from just everything, you know, just because of a lack of that exposure to technology. So I think it's important to give people that exposure and that knowledge in like a healthy, conducive way, and to let them, you know, like make their own decisions about it, because like I said earlier, technology's not going anywhere. We might as well get used to it. You know?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm in agreement on that. That was beautiful. I feel very moved about the internet now. Yeah.
So, in addition to that, Marley, as far as your passion with social media, when did it start? How did you begin your journey at the real estate company? Yeah. Give me all of it.
So I have a really crazy story about how I fell into marketing, because sometimes in life I have this fortunate thing where I fall upwards, is what we call it. And so I fell into a job. I started working at a bank. I'm from Arkansas, by the way. If there's anyone on here from Arkansas, shout out. But I'm from Arkansas, so I moved to a very, very small town in southern Arkansas when I was 18. And I got a job at a bank there that was a very small bank, just in that area of Arkansas. And so I had the privilege, because it was a small town bank, I had the privilege of being able to do a lot of jobs that other people wouldn't have an opportunity to do. So I started out as a teller, and I really got my foot in the door there. And then I moved into new accounts. And eventually, before I knew it, I was at another bank in town, and they were asking me if I could do marketing. And I was 19 or 20 at the time, and I had never done anything except post about myself on my personal social media, so I had no idea what they were really asking me to do. And so I was like, of course, because that's what we do. And it sounded like something I would love to do because you have a lot of creative freedom when you're marketing. And I was like, this is great. I would love to do something like this. And so I literally just Googled everything I possibly could before I started this venture with the bank. And so then I just took off. Like, I did marketing. I became very familiar with Canva. I love Canva. And then from there, I relocated to Shreveport when I was 21. And I have been here for almost 2.5, almost 3 years. And so when I moved to Shreveport, I continued my venture with a bank. So when I moved jobs, I got a job at another bank. But I wasn't marketing. I was actually doing lending. So I was in lending and I was doing that job, which was great pay. But anyone who is in lending, you guys are angels, because it was not the job for me. I just didn't feel fulfilled with that job. I didn't excel at it because it wasn't something that I was really that interested in. And so I moved on to a local real estate company here. And the way that I fell into that job, once again, was my real estate agent, when I bought a house, when I moved here to Shreveport, they remembered me and they liked my personality. So they called me when this job came available and they were like, hey, I thought you were really funny and just this like big personality. I think you would do good at this job, which was originally a front desk position. And then when I started there, they handed me all of the marketing. And so once again, I fell upwards into marketing. And so I just started marketing these houses and I started doing really, really well. And then I started picking up other like freelance clients who were realtors and just needed someone to like manage their social media or manage their Facebook for them. And so then I kind of got burnt out with real estate and I found Revision Marketing. They were looking for a social media coordinator. And I felt like I had done enough social media and I had done enough marketing at that point, because it had been about 2 years I'd been at my real estate company. And I felt like I was ready to have a job where it was just that. Like, it was a marketing firm. It was something that was focused and like somewhere I could really learn and excel. And so I applied here, and fortunately enough, I got the job, and now here I am. And so I really fell upwards into marketing. And it's been amazing. Like, it is the job for me. I don't have any question about if I'm in the right field or if, this is what I want to do. It definitely is. And so I encourage people to just like try it. Like, try your hand at it. Apply for these jobs. If this is something that you think you can do, like, anything you put your mind to, I really feel like you can accomplish. And so here I am. I have the creative freedom with my clients and with Revision to kind of make my own designs. And, I work, of course, with everybody here on text content and going over, hey, does this design look good? I can't tell you how many times I've sent Michaela a design and been like, hey, look at this. I love my job and that's how I got into it. So it was a crazy story, but here I am.
That is pretty crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Falling upward.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm very good at that. But what about you? I want to know how you got in this, game.
Yeah. This is a pretty crazy story.
Yeah.
Okay. So, senior year of high school, growing up in a healthcare family, they wanted me to go into healthcare, right? And I said no. And so I chose business because I honestly had no idea what I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And business always is the safe choice, put it that way. Like, it's kind of like, well, you're trying.
Yeah. Yeah.
But with that, I think when I went into college, I had like a midlife major crisis. Mm-hmm. Because I felt like the only way I could help other people was if I was a psychiatrist. And so
I understand that feeling.
What I did is I wrote all the paperwork out, only to be like thrown out. And I moved forward with my business degree. And what happened was I was granted a senior project on making an impact in my community. And so what I did is I started researching, because there wasn't a lot you could do during COVID, because you can put on these events or like you cannot do any of that in COVID.
No.
And so what I was doing, I was just looking more on, okay, so people need digital stuff now. They need to know about what's going on. And so my friend from high school, Maddie, she just married her now husband, Brandon, and he started his own videography company. And so he was looking for somebody to do his website. And me making one website ever on Wix, which is like the most basic platform you could do it on. I made it my blog on there, and so I was like, oh, I can do that, whatever. And so I made his site, and then things kind of blew up from there. His friend Justin Coleman, he actually just texted me today.
Yeah.
He basically fell in love with my work, and since then he's given me like 7 clients, and I was like, okay, maybe I could do this. And so what happened is I applied for like 100 jobs like you, Michael, in Shreveport before I moved down here with Trevor, my husband, at Barksdale. And basically what happened is me and Sydney connected on LinkedIn, and I just remember thinking I have no idea who this person is. And so I remember messaging him and just being like, hey, I'm looking for like different networking opportunities in the area. I've been trying to find a job and I have no idea what's going on, kind of thing. And he was like, okay, yeah, like we'll figure something out. And he started telling me about revision. And I was like, that's awesome. And again, started applying for jobs. And he messages me one day. He's like, are you still interested in the revision marketing job? And I had no idea that I even applied at this point, because I applied to like so many jobs. And I immediately texted back. I was like, yes, absolutely. And so we had an interview, and he was like, how do you feel about website design? I was like, yeah, sure. At this point, I've done like 10 websites in my entire life, and yeah, I've been here ever since. So it's pretty crazy.
Yeah. It really is.
Yeah, so that was a crazy moment of my life. But I think the biggest thing is Sydney really does challenge the traditional job market.
Yeah.
Because he hired me knowing that I had little to no experience in website design, but still had trust in me. And I think that's the biggest thing with traditional versus modern market for jobs. And so I guess my next question for you guys would be is how do you feel about just the traditional workplace that's portrayed on young people versus the more modern workplace that we work at, and the more laid back, okay, we're gonna be honest with each other, how do you think it affects us mentally and just being stable and all of that stuff?
Well, that's actually a cool question.
Yeah.
That's a cool question. So in that way, you have to identify what tradition is in terms of the workforce. And
I'd say really corporate.
No, but just for me, where does the corporate, you go back, Industrial Revolution, was kind of the restructuring of the American work environment, and then through the years, as you see capitalism and grow in America, as you see how it has, you get more factories, you get these big, large scale projects. And then, of course, at a certain point, back in, the 40s and the 50s, it was, that traditional work environment that go in, the hierarchy of chain of command and, work hard and, save your pennies and da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
Right.
But I think, as time goes on and, things, people change, technology evolved, social people as people evolved. We evolved kind of as a country and as a society. And of course, to tie into my stuff, you throw technology in there at a certain point.
Yeah.
So not only are you having new ways for businesses to grow, for people to grow, it's just you have access to stuff, and those are more of early planting the seeds. But like in coming like the 80s and the 90s, when you've got more home access to the internet, this is a point where, regardless of where you're from, and like even like now in 2021, regardless of where you're from, of what part of the world you live in, you can pick up a phone. If you get a phone, a computer, anything with internet, and you spend enough time, you can, expose yourself to worlds and worlds. And I just, it's so crazy to me that I mean, even me, it's so hard for any human to really fathomably comprehend how much information is out there and that is digitally recorded.
Yeah, you can find out how to do anything on the internet.
Exactly. And when you have, I think, the opportunity for each individual to say and to subject themselves to that kind of information without having to go through that traditional business, that traditional learning hierarchy, kind of, as it were, I think it just kind of just throws a loop in it. It just like, it's like, whoa, because it's so different, all those years ago, before the internet was really a home staple, you weren't having people who, like the employees in the hierarchy weren't able to go home and Google like how, find more information about how they should be treated, like within a professional environment or things like that. They couldn't inform themselves with as many resources. Like you would have to go to a library or, travel somewhere, get in your, car and drive somewhere. But now, Google your phone. Or if somebody does something wrong to you, or you want to see something, so you can be like, hey, this happened. Boom, you got a camera on your phone.
Yeah,
you can video it.
Yeah, we do have that freedom.
Like imagine what would have happened in the 1950s if people had camera phones and they were just able to video each other just doing bad stuff. Like, totally
we'd have a lot more progression. I see what you're saying. Yeah,
totally different. Yeah,
we're definitely more woke in a sense now.
It comes with that and better and worse,
Yeah.
With the flip side of the goodness of that provides, you're always going to have people who are going to take that power and use it to build up informational walls, to isolate themselves in kind of a vacuum of information.
Yeah.
Where they kind of curate an information in a technological environment wherein the stuff that they're being exposed to is nothing that's going to disagree with them. They're only showing themselves what they know they're going to agree with because it's out there and they can.
Yeah.
And there's, but then that gets into a whole other conversation, but it's I think, tangent aside, I think that really, because, but in all that being said as well, you at the same time, you have the ability to be more human with people with technology.
Yeah, you do.
Like, again, kind of going back, 50, 60 years ago, you couldn't just, for example, my dad, when he was deployed, we would talk almost every day over Facebook, over Messenger. I couldn't have done that if he was in like Vietnam.
It's like the 70s, you'd be writing letters.
Yeah, I'd be writing letters, but no, it's literally, he's like sending me pictures of the mountains that he's sleeping next to in Afghanistan. Like, so with that, I think you bring that into a work environment with the technology and everything, and it's kind of, I feel like, the default now. The default is you can't work well unless you are well as you.
Yeah.
Not you have to come in here and sacrifice and work and hope that it's worth something or that you deserve it at the end of the day because you've put in your time, you've done your hustle, so now you get to be the guy on top and you get to look at everyone else beneath you.
Yeah.
It's much more decentralized, I think, because it kind of has no other option because, again, with the internet, it's kind of a level playing field right now. If you have it, you have it. And, there's like, I'll put it this way. Even your boss is on Facebook. Even your boss has even your boss
it's not just a kid thing anymore.
Memes. Yeah. It's like these people that you see.
Watching TikToks.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you see these people like these big, these in ads and on TV, these big professional, not even just like business moguls, actors, these big people. But then you can go still like for not all of them, but for some of them you can go on social media and it's like you have a direct line to that person as a person. So that again, that line is kind of blurred of that, like everybody seems like you can really kind of see more of the humanity of it.
Yeah.
For better or for worse for a lot of people. So I think that becoming the focus is just kind of natural. And I'm honestly glad that it has been, because the inverse of bringing humans into the focus is not bringing people into the focus. Yeah. And I mean, just think about how bad things could be if things were still kind of on the more traditional, not so human-centric thing, but combine that with what technology can do. You know, that wouldn't be good. So, or at least I don't think it would be good. But yeah, technology has definitely changed it changes how we socialize, and in a professional environment, you do a lot of that.
Yeah.
So I think it just kind of happened, and I think it's okay. I mean, I think it's still changing for better or for worse. We still have to have that constant dialogue, but yeah. Yeah. It's important.
I think we appreciate the more modern, like, as we're the people, and we've talked about this a lot, because some of our clients, like, just we try to figure out what audience we're appealing to. And so as we've talked about it, we're like, okay, well, it's kind of us now. Like, we're the people getting jobs now. We're the people who are applying and, you know, looking.
Becoming mothers and fathers.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Weird. One of my best friends just had a kid.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So it's us now. And so obviously we are valuing a more modern standpoint in management and with the workplace. Like, we should be able to openly talk about mental health. I mean, thank God I work where I do, because I have had a tremendous year, and I've only been here 3 months, and like, there have been at least one time a month, I'm telling on myself now, where I'm like, hey, I literally am going to have a mental breakdown if I don't, like, I need some support here, like, with you guys. I need to vent, and I need, like, you to understand, like, hi, I look a little crappy at work today because I'm tired and worn out, and, you know, that's just how life is. And so, but on the other side of that, I've worked somewhere where it was very corporate, and where, I mean, could not, you know, I couldn't have my tattoos out. There's no way I could have my nose ring in. Like, everything, I had to wear certain things. I had to dress a certain way. There was a very strict dress code. And if I went to my boss and was like, I'm having a hard time with my mental health, they would be like, okay, well, there's not really anything I can do except you can use your paid time off. But those are your sick days. Like, they wouldn't provide me any sort of, like, well, what's going on? How can I help? Is there anything I can do with the environment? Like, so it's a very much a double-sided coin right now. I think that we're starting to fade out of the traditional way things are because of our generation, because we're like, hey, we're not going to work somewhere where we're not appreciated, which I think is really cool and really punk of all of us, because we are kind of doing that. I've read a lot about that, where we're just all like, if this isn't somewhere where I feel appreciated, like, I'm not going to stick around. And I think that's really cool, because, like you were touching on, back in the day, like, back when my mom was starting a job or my dad was starting a job, you worked because they believed they didn't have the option to work somewhere that was comfortable to them, or work somewhere where they got a paycheck and they didn't really like their boss and they weren't appreciated. Like, they didn't have that kind of mentality that we do now, and we're honestly really changing the mold. So I think that's really cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, I don't want to speak for everybody. I don't want to speak for anybody.
Yeah.
But this is how I feel.
Yeah.
I feel that the older generations, if we talk about things that make them uncomfortable or express our feelings in ways that make them uncomfortable, is because we're unprofessional.
Yes. And that's very much so. Like, there's been times where, you know, I have people on my, like, obviously, if you're on my Instagram, you're on my Facebook, you're really going to get to see, in a sense, who I am outside of work, even though I'm pretty transparent about who I am at work anyways. But yeah, back just in the bank, like, I could not have anyone from the bank on my social media. like at all. It's completely unprofessional to them.
And I think the biggest thing is we, as young people, have grown with such thick skin that we just want to be unapologetically ourselves for once, especially because we're not around our peers anymore. Hopefully, supposedly. Yeah.
We're around people that we want to be around.
Right.
Yeah, like we have that freedom.
And not people we've been from kindergarten to 12th grade to potentially college or wherever else.
Unless those people are cool.
Well, and then
I got some people like that.
Even if we are still around those people, it's because we choose to be.
Oh, yeah.
So we have that freedom. We're not like going to school every day and have to eat with them in the cafeteria.
Right.
Because no offense to anyone who's listening to this, they know me and they're like, hey, I sat next to you at the cafeteria. We were friends. But what I have to say is like, when you're going to school every day and you have to see the same people every day, you're pretty much forced into a friendship of sorts. You know what I mean? Like you find your group, you find
it's an acquaintance thing. That's what I had people like that, like especially in college.
Exactly.
We had a lot of the same classes together.
Yeah.
We were in the same major, so we were like, okay, let's be buddies. Let's get together. Let's group up and study up and have a mutually beneficial sort of friendship, and then I'll see you the next time we have a class together.
Which it turns into too, as it goes into another part of being an adult and like not being around our peers. It's like, oh, okay, like we just don't have these set friends and acquaintances. So like now we date people to be friends. Not like we date people, but making friends as an adult is a lot like dating, is what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
Very much so.
And so it's kind of like we turn into adults and we're like, hi, you look like you like the same things as me. Would you like to get coffee? It's just like,
yes,
it's this crazy thing, but yeah.
I think we're in that way. I think us, I think it's become valued to be more transparent with people and just be like, hey, you seem cool.
We should be friends.
And then in the converse, it's become a lot more to be like, okay, no, it's fine. And,
yeah,
and I think in a lot of ways people, have kind of come to accept that more, but I think, again, that kind of comes with just the evolution of everything. And again, to go back to the internet, when you throw something as big as the internet, that's so, you can be transparent on the internet. I mean, you can have anonymity, but you can be as transparent as you want.
Yeah.
Wherever you want to be. And I think part of the reason that we become that is we got a taste of that with the internet. And then we started thinking, okay, but why isn't real life like this? Why isn't the rest of socialization? What's wrong? And over the years, we've come to kind of figure it out and figure out our own way to groove with it and to kind of carve that niche of socializing where it's not what it was. It's different and better.
So, in conclusion, I think the biggest thing that we want to portray on Young Creatives is, if you're a young person and you want to start your own business or anything in that realm and you want to promote yourself creatively, be unapologetic about it.
Yeah.
And be that person that like people will be like, she knows what she's doing or he knows what he's doing, and he doesn't care what anybody else thinks.
Well, just remember, I think it's also important to remember also that nobody got smart starting out. Yeah, everybody had to start somewhere.
That's right. No big company ever started big.
Right.
They always started as a small
business.
You got
to start somewhere too.
Yeah. And even like if you're feeling discouraged about like taking your hobby to a full-time job, like when you have that clientele, I encourage you to take off. Mm-hmm. I mean, like Revision started as a startup, like an idea from our founder, Sydney, but
our marketing specialist
/ founder / coworker / boss, Sydney. Yeah, so I think do it. Like I want to be that encouraging voice for you.
And don't be afraid to fail.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of negative stigma about
failing
or a fear of failing. And the biggest thing I've learned at Revision is even if you spell a domain name wrong, even if you do.
Yeah.
They can always buy another one. Yeah. They can always buy another one.
Yeah, all mistakes can be fixed, and you're going to make them.
Absolutely.
You're going to make them.
You're going to make them, so don't
I've done it.
Don't worry about it.
I've misspelled something that I'm supposed to be marketing in text content, and I'm like, I'm so sorry. I'm really glad I sent this to you first.
And that's just human, you know. I mean, Thomas Edison, when he invented the light bulb, he's like, he failed like 1,000 times beforehand.
Yeah.
He's like, I invented 1,000 ways not to invent the light bulb. That's how I think of it. I just think failure should be like, oh, well, I found a new way not to do
that.
Not
Yeah.
to do my goal, you know.
Not gonna work
so
like
it keeps
that.
kind of that like that positive and that intake of just knowledge, you know. I think that's the focus, and you know, just inform yourself and inform other people, you know.
Yes, that second part, and also informing other people. I made this wrong
Hey, I did
decision.
this. Yeah.
Yeah, being honest.
Or this worked for me.
The only thing that makes a decision bad is when you don't acknowledge it, and it's just like when everyone's just like, dude, we know you made a mistake, and you're like, it's just better to just be like, yeah, I messed up, because people usually are like, oh, you know, it's okay, it's whatever,
Yeah.
it happens, you know.
Absolutely.
Honesty, transparency,
Constant improvement.
Constant improvement.
results.
Yes. Alrighty, well, I think that about wraps it up.
Yeah.
I
I think we did a good intro. I think everybody's going to get a good taste for us now.
I hope.
Absolutely. You got Michael, Marley, and Michaela here at Young Creatives. Stay tuned for more episodes.
Yes.
And yeah.
Exciting guest speakers ahead.
Yeah.
A lot of cool stuff.
Absolutely.
So,
Alrighty.
Wild and wacky.
wild and wacky.
We'll see you next time.
Thank you.